Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of The Package Tourist, hosted by yours truly, The Package Tourist, the magical mystery tour called life, Matthew DiBiase. Tonight's guest is author David Dupuis. David was born and raised in Ontario, Canada. He has written about local history and is the author of Sawchuk, The Troubles and Triumphs of the World's Greatest Goalie, a fantastic book, I must add. Dupuis was the only author ever to get permission from the Sawchuk family to write the authorized biography of Terry Sawchuk. He also co-authored the 2013 biography Heart of the BLACKHAWKS, the Pierre Pilote Story, and the Red Kelly Story, which won the 2016 Ontario Speakers Book Award. He lives in Ontario, and for the past several years he has broken new ground with a new genre with an 8-book modern-day historical fiction series titled about a boy destined to be the last pope against the Antichrist at the end of the world in our times. David, it's been 3 years since you've been on the show, and it's a great honor to have you back. Please tell our listeners, can you please bring us up to date with your character Peter Mercier in the St. Hildegard series in volumes 3 and 4? Ever since the last time we were on the show.
Hey, Matthew, great to be back, and a lot has happened since we last spoke. The 8-book series is now a 9-book series. Hildegard keeps throwing stuff at me, and I thought there would be one book, the one I'm working on presently, book 6. I thought it might be one book, but with the virus and the election of Trump and the war in Ukraine and all this stuff that's in the story, the attack on the Capitol, the problems in the church, I had to split book 6 up into 2 books. So now this series is 9 books. So since we last spoke, I put out book 3 and 4, and all the books run kind of like coincidentally with the papacy. Mm-hmm. Now, the same issue I had with Pope John Paul II, who had a long papacy. So book 3 and 4 concerned him and the events in the world at that time, of which there were very, very many of them. So Peter Mercier is the central figure that he will be the one to face the Antichrist at the end of the world, at the end of book 9.
Yeah.
And so he obviously is important to the story, and as each pope is elected, they become aware and are filled in about the importance of Peter, because legend is that the last pope at the end of the world would be called Peter II. And that's why no pope has ever taken his name, I believe. And the story has a life of its own. Each book has a theme. And the 3rd book, traveled from Ethiopia to a big problem in the church and the issue in the world, actually, but it strikes the church a lot, is this child sexual abuse by priests. It's a worldwide issue. It's a church issue because it's so prominent in the sense that when a priest seems to harm children, it makes headlines, but in fact, it's prevalent through all of society, unfortunately.
Yes.
But Peter's special. He becomes a priest at the end of book 2. And book 3, he travels to Ethiopia. He has the Pope come up. Pope John Paul II visits Canada early on in his papacy, after he had been nearly assassinated in St. Peter's Square. So book 3 is the first half of his papacy, and the fall of communism, and book 4 takes off from there, where Pope John Paul becomes elderly, but Peter is also involved, but there's so much going on in the world at that time as well that it's really kind of a neat, not a love story, but a story that catches Peter's closeness to the popes and they realize his importance at the end of the world. It's really hard to capture in a few sentences.
Okay. Now we come to your latest release, Volume 5, The Besieged. Let's talk about that now. Okay, where are we now in Volume 5? What time period are we now?
Volume 5 is the papacy of Benedict, Joseph Ratzinger. So, interestingly, I try to make the book non-churchy as much as it's about popes and bishops, but there are presidents, world events. So, Book 5 starts with Benedict being elected, but in the papal election, I have Peter getting some votes, even though by this time he's only a bishop. And so he gets votes, and when Benedict's elected, he also becomes aware of Peter. And in my novel, I have Peter not wanting to meet him because he's not too impressed that Benedict was elected. You know, he was known as God's Rottweiler, and he's very orthodox and not nearly as exciting as Pope John Paul II was. But eventually they meet, and they work things out. But Peter is involved in. There's so many storylines that run through each book. They go through the whole series, but each book has its own characters and storylines. And I was trying to think today of all the storylines that run in each, and I don't have my writing style so far through all these books is to still have it just in my head. So it is a challenge to keep everything straight. But Book 5, I believe, is my best work. It's there's so much that happens that we can see events that happen in the world. The series runs through our lifetime, so the events that happen, we're aware of them, we know them, and so Book 5 is a lot of issues about the Antichrist and he growing in economic power. He's from the Middle East originally in Africa, but Peter is a bishop that he has a lot of bishops behind him, but then again, he never wants to usurp Pope Benedict, and there's I try to throw in many interesting things like the trial in Jerusalem of the James ossuary and how it comes into the story. Peter's assassination attempt on him a couple of times, and he's an exorcist as well, and so there's a lot to pack into the series.
Yeah, you mentioned the Antichrist. Let's tell our listeners about the actions taken by the bad guys called the Dark Watch, and of course the Antichrist figure, I hope I'm saying this right, Penetanguishene. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. You got it pretty close. Yeah. The Dark Watch are like a sect, and they, from the very beginning, they've been put on Earth to await the Antichrist, who arrives in Book 2 in 1962, and so they're meant to protect and raise the Antichrist, and as he becomes powerful, to serve him. But also part of their mission is they realize that Hildegard has the 7 keys. Hildegard was a saint in the 12th century. She had predictions of the end of the world, and she had these 7 keys, which were visions. And they occur as the story goes along. Each key turns. It's about people, events, and the watch are always trying to find them. And a couple of times there are also documents that they try to get a hold of, and it's a battle back and forth. it's kind of like James Bond a little bit.
Yeah.
But they're pretty evil. But to counter them, there's a white group called the Brethren who are meant to aid and protect Peter, and also to pray. The Brethren are spread out throughout the world. Some are guardians that guard the 7 key documents. Some guard the 7 keys, who are people who are popes, going to be popes, part of the story. And there's prayers, who are many, many, many people in the world whose only task is to pray that good overcomes evil. In a nutshell.
Okay. Now, interestingly, how does a female rock star figure in the story, and what's her relationship with Peter Mercier?
Well, actually, that is one of my favorite parts of Book 5. I'm always looking for an interesting character, an interesting storyline. She was a rock. Her name is Danielle Humphreys in the story, and the book begins with her in a drug-induced week-long orgy of drugs in a London hotel room after having just finished a concert, and she's really down and out. She's on the floor, really, actually pretty about ready to die. She's not doing very well, and the TV is on, and in her suite in this London hotel, and the news comes on, and it's talks about the papal conclave that elects Benedict, but it lets out the news that Bishop Peter Mercier, apparently had received a few papal votes, which is unusual for a bishop not in a conclave. So the flips to Peter speaking to a University of Boston crowd, and he starts talking about his theory of the white soul, and it will be a theory that, as the series develops, will help convert many and save the world. But she listens to him, and she's able to lift her head off the floor and listen to him, and his talk so elevates her. And matter of fact, it's almost like a miracle where he almost mentions her name, and she doesn't understand why, but he says, pick yourself up and get yourself better. You can do this. Go home. Go to New Jersey. She's from New Jersey. And she's so touched by what he says that she turns her life around, stops her world tour, which was about to kill her, and she goes home and gathers herself, and she wants to meet this bishop from Canada that she heard about, which she eventually does in the middle of Book 5. And she becomes one of his most ardent followers, and he does a talk in Madison Square Garden, and she opens it with a couple of songs. And as a matter of fact, later in the book, when there's an assassination attempt on Peter, she helps save him. So she's very integral to the story.
Okay. Do you envision, when you're planning this future your future books on the Hildegard series, do you envision Donald Trump as a potential member of the Dark Watch threatening the church? Do you see that?
That's funny because he's so dominant in our world today, and of course, as I start book 6, he's about to announce for president, so he's certainly in the story. I don't see him as being part of the Watch, but I see the Watch having dark influence in his campaign and his people around him, and influencing what he does, indirectly but directly, and as well Vladimir Putin and Russia, because the series also begins with the vision from Fatima that says the third vision that Lucia received from the Virgin Mary, that Russia will spread her errors. So throughout, Russia is, even in Book 6, obviously we're going to be having Ukraine and the war and Russia is quite involved. So I don't see Donald Trump directly in the watch, but he will be strongly influenced by ONA and the watch, who wrap their tentacles around his campaign and become immersed in the story. I'm presently trying to find a middle ground, and I'm coming up with a character in the next book to understand how the Trump voter became so enamored with Donald Trump, and I have a character who will innocently go to a Trump rally and become fall into the sect, I guess you could almost call it. But I want the character to he'll probably be at the Capitol when the Capitol is attacked. But try to understand Americans that are taken over to the other side, but how that happens. And I'm struggling with that, but I don't want to attack Republicans. I want to understand them and the Trump voter, which will be quite a large task for me. But certainly Trump and the Dark Watch are integral to the story.
Now, since your last appearance on my show, so much has happened in the world, especially with the church. We've had the death, we just recently had the death of Pope Francis, the accession of Pope Leo XIV, the election of President Joe Biden, the second Roman Catholic president in U.S. history. We got the war in Ukraine, and now the upsurge in violence in the Middle East. You see this as absolute potential fodder for the future volumes to come, correct?
Yeah. Actually, Pope Leo was throwing a wrench into my plans because I had envisioned cutting away from the story in the middle of Pope Francis, because my story's got to go ahead at some point. Otherwise, it's going to be a 12-book series.
Yeah.
And I'm running out of time. And but I never did have it yet. I keep everything about the popes, and I've been following Leo with great interest. And obviously, Joe, I don't think the presidency of Joe Biden being a Catholic really had much to do with Catholicism and Biden's interest or influence in the church, or vice versa. So I don't think that is that important. Though I think being a Catholic, I think made Joe Biden a good person, a good president.
Yes. I mean, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, so the election of Leo, certainly there's so many good things happening that I don't know what Hildegard's going to do with me. She's the one in charge. I keep thinking I am, but she's not, because the story and the interesting things that are happening in the world and the church keep throwing a wrench in my plans.
Now, you've been chronicling the papacy for decades, as you mentioned, in the book notes there. Were you as surprised as I was when Pope Leo XIV was elected as Pope? I mean, I was personally gobsmacked. I never thought in a million years something like that would happen. How about you?
Well, certainly at the moment I was. But as I look back now, and I've been doing a lot of reading, he of course, they say an American would never have been elected Pope. But the fact is that he's an American, but he's not. He's very much influenced in Peru, where he was a bishop, and spent as much time in Peru, I think, as the United States.
Yeah.
And then he was also part of the Decadary of Bishops in Rome when he became a cardinal 2 years ago. So that puts you directly in contact with all the cardinals in the world.
Yeah.
They pass through him, talk to him, do arrangements through him. Appointments of monsignors and everything are done through him. So, they had a lot of exposure to him. And I think they were struck by his humility, his intelligence, And perhaps, you know what, I sometimes think, sometimes there's a balance to be had.
Yeah.
And maybe because of Trump, and maybe because of the divisions in the world and in the United States, and obviously the United States is the most powerful country in the world, maybe part of it was Leo could act as a stabilizing force.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
No, I can see that. I can see that. I see that too. I believe there was something. It was very inspired. His selection in many ways. It was inspired very much. You almost like the invisible hand, moving and all that. The spirit moving and all that.
And I mean, elected on the 4th ballot. I mean, and he was not on anybody's list if you had Vatican watchers.
Yeah.
He was. They say he was, but I never heard his name.
No. I kept thinking they would go third world again. Really.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was
cardinal, maybe a African cardinal this time. Or,
yeah. I was thinking
or
that
even
too.
Even from the Philippines, or Cardinal Luis. Yeah. He was a beautiful priest too. So I could have seen him elected, and I wouldn't have been surprised if he had been, but. It'll be interesting.
Okay. David, has Hollywood ever approached you, or have you ever approached Hollywood about translating the Hildegard series into a film or TV series?
Yeah, I've had a couple of pretty strong inquiries. One producer who does documentaries for Netflix and the History Channel did approach me. Funny though, he didn't approach me about Hildegard. He approached me first about Sawchuk and wanted to do a biography, a documentary on Terry Sawchuk, the great goalie, but from his wife's point of view, because he had found out that I had done the book, and he found out that I had tapes of Mrs. Sawchuk, about 20 hours worth.
Yeah.
And he thought it would be interesting to tell Terry's story through her words, her actual words.
Yeah.
And so when he contacted me about that, of course, we exchanged emails. And at the bottom of my email, I'm always identified as author of the 7 Keys of Hildegard, or the Hildegard Prophecies.
Yeah.
So he inquired about what is this Hildegard thing. And so I gave him book 1 and 2. And he was gobsmacked. He said, "Oh my God!" So he contracted it for 2 years to try to get something together, but he never could. And then I had a second producer, who's an actual film producer, contact me last year, and through a mutual friend, and he had said to me, he says, I don't. Your books are no use to me. I need something small to show to eventual people who will be interested, investors. And so he says, I need you to do a book proposal. So he sent me copies of book proposals. Movie proposals. Actually, series. He says, I see this as a series.
Yeah.
He had read book 1 and 2, and he said this would make a great series.
Yeah.
And but you need to produce a series proposal. Yeah. And so he sent me stuff, and I put the 14-page proposal together, and he said, I think that's about the best proposal for you. Someone who's never done one before, that was the best serious proposal I've ever seen.
Wow.
So he presently has it, but the movie business has slowed down lately because the investor money is not out there right now, and the tariffs have really hit Hollywood hard.
Yeah. Now, David, have you ever gotten any feedback from any Catholic clergy about the Hildegard series? Anything from the church or any officials, bishops or cardinals or anything like that?
Well, a bishop is presently reading book 1 from Northern Ontario. Ooh. But I did have contact with a female priest. There are female priests in the world. And she runs the Hildegard House in Ohio.
Ooh.
And I had touched base with her way back, and we've always been in touch. And she read book 1 and 2 and loved it. And so she also has her former pastor, Catholic priest, who she used to work for before she became a female priest. She actually helped to run the parish in Ohio, and so he's read them and he loves them. He's actually put a couple of reviews on Amazon for me, and so we've communicated, and I'm no theologian, I'm no expert, I'm not a priest, but he's been reassuring me that no, you're doing okay. It's not you're not, because I sometimes think I'm venturing where I don't belong or don't know, but he loves the series and tells me to keep going. Good.
Please tell our listeners, where can readers find your books? Do you have a website, David?
I do have a website. It's www.davidmdupuis.com. And my books are available also on Amazon.
Okay. David, when can we expect the release of Volume 6 in the Hildegard series?
Oh, boy, that's a toughie. I'm working on it now. I'm trying to aim for the next fall or Christmas at the latest. But these stories, they're historical in nature, and I have fact and fiction intertwined. So it takes a lot of research and to make the story be seamlessly together, fact and fiction and popes and made-up priests and characters and situations with real-life issues, real fact issues, world history as we know it. That takes time. So I am hoping for next summer, failing that, fall, Christmas, hoping next year for sure.
Well, the thing is, the reality we're living now is even stranger than some fiction that it is being written. It's almost supernatural when you look at it. It's frightening and insane at the same time.
It is. I have readers who reach out to me and they'll send me stories, and they'll say, "Here's more fodder for Hildegard," and it's almost like it's happening to help me, almost like because the storylines and the things that are happening in the world are novelesque. I mean, it's just uncanny how even the last 10 years the world has been thrown into upheaval, and seems to be supernatural forces at work.
I know. David, I want to thank you so much for appearing on the show, okay? And keep me posted. I want you on the show again with all the future volumes, okay?
Awesome. Thank you very much.
You take care. Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, Matt. Bye-bye.
Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, for next week's show where I'll be interviewing sports author David Finoli. Thank you and good night.